Look, I'm gonna say something that's gonna make a lot of people uncomfortable. Being broke has almost nothing to do with how much money you make. The median household income in America is around $74,000 a year, and studies show that most lottery winners, people who got handed hundreds of thousands of dollars overnight, are broke again within 5 years, straight up. Now you might be thinking, okay, rich people just started with money or got lucky. And yeah, some did, but here's what most people don't get. The research shows it's not about the money, it's about how your brain is wired to process it. A 2022 Federal Reserve study found that 37% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. And this includes people earning over $50,000 a year. The income isn't the problem, man. So in this video, I'm going to break down the actual psychological differences in how wealthy people think, not the motivational poster stuff, the real cognitive patterns backed by behavioral economics and neuroscience. This is going to change how you see money. We're covering 7 psychological shifts today: time perception, risk tolerance, identity, decision-making, opportunity cost, brain rewiring, and the one thing that ties all of it together. Alright, chapter 1, and this is the one that messed me up the most when I first learned it. Rich people experience time differently than the rest of us, and I mean that literally, neurologically. Behavioral economists call this temporal discounting. Your brain naturally devalues future rewards. $1 today feels worth more than $1 next year. But here's the thing, wealthy people discount the future at a much lower rate than average people. Their future feels more real to them. Think about it like this. When you ask someone broke to choose between $100 today or $150 in a year, most people take the $100 right now. That's a guaranteed 50% return they're walking away from. No investment on earth consistently does 50% in a year. Now here's where it gets really interesting. A Stanford study called the marshmallow test. They gave kids 1 marshmallow now or 2 if they waited 15 minutes. The kids who waited, they had higher SAT scores, better health, higher income decades later. Delayed gratification literally predicts your financial future. And look, I know what you're thinking. I didn't have the luxury of patience growing up. Bills were real, emergencies were real, and that's valid. But here's the psychological shift wealthy people make. They connect their future self to their present decisions. Their future feels like a real person they care about. Here's the math. If you invest just $300 a month starting at age 25 at a 10% average annual return, by 65 you have $1.9 million. Wait until 35 to start. Same $300 a month, same return, you end up with $678,000. That 10-year delay cost you $1.2 million. Time is the only thing you can never buy back. That $1.2 million gap isn't from investing more, it's from starting earlier. Time is literally the most powerful financial tool you have, and most people are burning it. Okay, chapter 2, the risk perception gap, and this one blew my mind. Most people think rich people are risk takers, big gamblers, ballsy, but the research says the opposite. Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman proved this in his prospect theory. Losing $100 creates roughly twice the psychological pain as gaining $100 creates pleasure. This is called loss aversion, and people with less money feel this effect even more intensely because every dollar genuinely matters more. So here's what happens. When you're struggling financially, your brain goes into pure loss prevention mode. Every financial decision is filtered through how do I not lose what I have, and that makes complete sense as a survival mechanism, but it also keeps you from taking the calculated risks that build wealth. Think about it this way. If you have $500 to your name and someone says invest $200 in an index fund, that's 40% of everything you own. That's terrifying. But if you have $100,000 saved and someone says invest $200, that's 0.2%. Barely a blip. Same $200. Completely different psychological experience. Wealthy people don't take more risks. They take risks that feel smaller because they have more cushion. And here's what most people don't get. They built that cushion specifically so that risk would feel smaller. It's a deliberate psychological strategy, not luck. The Federal Reserve found that families in the top 10% of wealth hold 70% of all financial assets in America. Meanwhile, the bottom 50% hold just 2.5%. And the gap keeps widening, not because rich people are luckier, but because their cushion lets them take the compounding risks that generate more cushion. So the practical move, build your psychological cushion first. Even $1,000 in a savings account changes how your brain processes risk. It's not about the amount, it's about having a buffer that tells your nervous system you're okay. That shifts your decision-making completely. Okay, chapter 3, and honestly, this might be the most important one, identity and money. Here's the thing most financial advice completely ignores. Your relationship with money is almost entirely driven by who you believe you are. James Clear in Atomic Habits breaks this down perfectly. There are 3 levels of behavior change: outcome, what you want; process, what you do; identity, who you believe you are. Most people try to change outcomes. Wealthy people change their identity first, and the behaviors follow automatically. Real example, 2 people both want to start investing. Person A says I'm trying to invest. Person B says I'm an investor. Sounds like a small difference, but person B's brain now filters every financial decision through what would an investor do. It's not willpower, it's identity. Research from the University of Chicago found that people who labeled themselves as savers versus spenders had dramatically different financial outcomes, even when starting with the same income. The label you give yourself predicts your behavior more than your actual financial situation does. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Most people who grew up without money have a deeply embedded identity of scarcity. And that identity isn't weakness, it was a rational adaptation to their environment. But it becomes a trap when the environment changes and the identity doesn't. It's like a kid who grew up in a drought. They learn to never waste water. Then they move somewhere with abundant water and still take 2-minute showers and refuse to water the garden. The scarcity is gone. The scarcity mindset stayed. The fix isn't fake it till you make it. It's act as if. Start making 1 decision per day from the identity of someone who is building wealth. Pack lunch instead of spending $15 out. Research 1 ETF. Read 1 page of a finance book. Each action is a vote for the new identity. Chapter 4, Decision Making. And I need you to really pay attention here because this is where the daily gap lives. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is mostly made up of thousands of small decisions, and wealthy people make those decisions differently. Kahneman's research identifies two thinking systems. System 1, fast, automatic, emotional, instinctive. System 2, slow, deliberate, logical, effortful. Most financial mistakes happen in System 1. Impulse buys, panic selling during market drops, taking the $100 now instead of $150 later. Wealthy people have learned to pause before financial decisions, not forever, just long enough for System 2 to kick in. There's actually a rule called the 72-hour rule. Before any non-essential purchase over $100, wait 72 hours. Most of the time, you don't want it anymore. Here's a concrete example. Average person sees Nike drops a new $180 sneaker. System 1 fires dopamine hit desire buy now. They buy $180 gone. Wealthy person sees the same sneaker. System 1 fires the same dopamine, but then they pause. They ask, does this align with my financial goals this month? 72 hours later, the feeling passed. $180 stays invested. Now here's something wild. A Princeton study found that financial scarcity actually reduces cognitive bandwidth. When you're stressed about money, your IQ effectively drops by about 13 points for financial decisions. Poverty doesn't just drain your bank account, it drains your thinking capacity. The researchers called it the bandwidth tax of poverty. When your mental bandwidth is consumed by financial stress, will I make rent? How do I cover this bill? There's literally less cognitive capacity left for long-term thinking. This is why getting even a small financial cushion changes everything. It frees up your brain. So the first step isn't investing. The first step is reducing financial stress enough to think clearly. That might mean $1,000 emergency fund before anything else. Give your brain room to operate. Chapter 5, this one is genuinely life-changing if you internalize it. Opportunity cost. Wealthy people don't just see the price of something, they see what that money could have become. The $6 daily Starbucks coffee. Everyone's heard this example and everyone rolls their eyes, but let me give you the actual math. $6 a day is $2,190 a year. Invested at 10% annual return for 30 years, that's $393,000. You're not buying coffee, you're choosing $393,000 versus coffee. Now, I'm not saying never buy coffee, I'm saying understand what you're trading. Most people experience transactions as simple exchanges, money for thing. Wealthy people experience them as trades between present value and future value. Every dollar has a shadow price. Warren Buffett famously thinks about everything in terms of what he calls the Berkshire Hathaway test. Before he spends on anything significant, he asks what return that capital could generate in his portfolio. He bought a $20,000 car when he was worth billions, because a $20,000 car deployed in his investments could become $1 million over time. Here's a practical version you can start using today. For any purchase over $50, ask yourself one question. If I invested this instead, what would it be worth in 10 years at 10% return? Multiply by 2.6, that's your shadow price. Is the thing worth that shadow price to you? Sometimes yes, often no. Quick shadow price calculator. $100 today becomes $259 in 10 years. $500 becomes $1,296. $1,000 becomes $2,594. At 10% annual return, every time you spend, you're choosing between the thing and these numbers. That's how wealthy people see every single transaction. I'm not saying live like a monk, I'm saying spend consciously. Know the real cost of what you're buying, because most people never do that math, and that math is exactly what separates the two mindsets. Okay, final chapter, and this is where most finance videos just say change your mindset and leave you hanging. We're not doing that. Here's the actual neuroscience of how to rewire your financial thinking. Neuroscience has proven the concept of neuroplasticity. Your brain physically rewires itself based on repeated behavior. Every time you make a conscious financial decision, you strengthen that neural pathway. Researchers at UCL found it takes an average of 66 days to form a new habit, not 21 like the old myth said. So here's your actual 66-day protocol. Not a list of 10 things, 3 things, just 3. 1. Automate one investment the day you get paid, even $25. Remove the decision. 2. Before any purchase over $50, take 10 seconds and ask investor or spender. 3. Read one page of a finance book per day. 1 page. The 66-day protocol. Day 1 to 21, it feels forced. You'll want to quit, that's normal. Day 22 to 45, it starts feeling easier. You notice yourself thinking differently. Day 46 to 66, the new behavior starts to feel like you. That's the identity shift happening. That's neuroplasticity in real time. Look, I want to be real with you for a second. Nothing I said today is magic. You're not going to watch this video and wake up rich tomorrow. But if you take even one of these psychological shifts and actually apply it consistently for 66 days, your brain will be different. And a different brain makes different decisions. And different decisions change your life. That's how it actually works. Quick recap of all 7 shifts: time perception, risk cushion, identity first, system 2 decisions, opportunity cost, neuroplasticity protocol, and the tie that binds all of them: consistency over intensity, small moves every day for a long time. If this video gave you one useful thing, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe if you want to go deeper on the psychology of money every week. And drop a comment. I read every single one. What's the one psychological shift that hit hardest for you today?